At first it seemed a little speck, and then it seemed a mist. It moved and took at last a certain shape I wist. With throats unslaked, with black lips baked, agape they heard me call. Gramercy for joy did grin, and all at once their breath drew in, as they were drinking all. See, I cried, she tacks no more, hither to work us wheel. Without a breeze, without a tide, she steadies with upright keel. One after one, by the star-dogged moon, too quick for groan or sigh, each turned his face with a ghastly pang, and cursed me with his eye. 4 times 50 living men, and I heard nor sigh nor groan. With heavy thump, a lifeless lump, they dropped down one by one. The souls did from their bodies fly, they fled to bliss or woe, and every soul it passed me by, like the whiz of my crossbow. Selections of The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Well House Exorcism. This is your ghost of a host with the most, Shanna.
It's PukwuPJ.
And this episode is brought to you by Maggie's Casket, LLC. If you are looking for a spooky lady who can teach you to paint, then look no further than this company. Maggie's Casket offers a variety of painting and sipping endeavors.
I made a special cat.
She even recently did a painting event for my Girl Scout troop, which was no small feat, and brought everything we would need. I had to supply...
the Girl Scouts had small feet.
Nothing. We had to supply nothing. She is a professional and a lovely person to work with, so get your spooky on and paint with Maggie's Casket, LLC. And yes, she is a lovely person to paint with, and she's awesome. And the Girl Scouts have small feet. Okay, moving on.
Because you're children. You're tiny.
Not all of them. Some are taller than me.
A few.
Anyway, before we get into tonight's episode, I just want to give a shout out to Phantom Detectives LLC. They reached out to us on Facebook, and it honestly made my Mother's Day. They are a group of researchers and investigators of the paranormal who have been featured in magazines, on radio, TV, and more. They are stationed out of Oxford, PA, which is about an hour away from Philadelphia. I truly look forward to talking with them so much more. So thank you for your consideration, Phantom Detectives.
Yep, we hope that, we can talk with you. But at the very least, thank you for reaching out to us and saying hi.
It's so exciting. I love that people are, talking to us finally.
Yes.
I'm not kidding, my listeners. I want to talk to you.
We want to hear from you.
Even this morning, Chris accidentally sent us a message. And I was like, hey, how's it going, Chris? It's 7 o'clock in the morning. So shout out to Chris, too. This episode tonight actually is for one of my listeners, Steve. It's the last one for you because I realized I had one more ghost ship story that I have had for a while. My son Eli suggested it months ago, and I said, yeah, I'll do that eventually, and I just never got around to doing it. But I do want to go into Alcatraz in the future. So I need to get this one done so we can do a 3-part series for Alcatraz.
Wait. Hold on now.
What?
Because you said we were going into Queen Mary.
Yeah, we are.
And then an hour ago, well, no, not an hour ago, a couple hours ago, you said, we're going to do Alcatraz. No. And now we're going back to Queen Mary.
No, I didn't say we're doing Alcatraz.
Yeah, you definitely said Alcatraz.
100%
you said Alcatraz.
I did not.
I've been Googling Alcatraz for the past 2 hours.
No, I said we're doing Queen Mary.
Yeah, you said that earlier.
Yeah.
But then you said Alcatraz.
I did not say
you
Alcatraz
definitely
at
went
all
back
today.
to Alcatraz.
I told your siblings that we're going to be doing Alcatraz in the future, but not this week.
I definitally heard Alcatraz.
It's because you don't listen to me.
Well, I was editing a lot.
Yeah, I'm not doing Alcatraz.
Oh, crap. I am not prepared.
Well, I didn't share the script, so.
I would have read it.
I don't read the script. Script reads me. My references for this evening are terrifying real-life stories of haunted houses and scary mysteries by Hearst Specials, the Travel Channel, Travel and Leisure, and BuzzFeed. Fun fact.
Interesting.
Yes. So I am doing the story of the RMS Queen Mary for you, Steve. The story. The RMS Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner that was both bigger and faster than the Titanic. And, if you can imagine, It was even more luxurious than the Titanic.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. It had 12 decks that boasted intricate woodwork polished to a high gleam and Art Deco designs. It comes as no surprise that it was the preferred transportation for royalty and celebrities crossing the Atlantic Ocean. The property finished an extensive renovation in early 2023, so while you ponder a stay on the spooky but spick and span ship, here's everything you need to know about its dark past and the ghosts who haunt its halls. Oh, thank you. I'm very proud of that.
So wait, so it's still operational?
So,
it does
yes
look like the
and no.
Titanic, doesn't it? Look at that.
Yeah. So there are 2 Queen Marys. The original Queen Mary is docked forever in Cali. There's a Queen Mary 2 that was just created and christened in like 2003. I forget. There's a second one, but it's built off of the original. So there are 2 Queen Marys. The one that's forever docked is the haunted, creepy one.
Okay. So Queen Mary 2 is
one that actually
a perfectly
functions.
normal boat.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it's new.
1936 was its maiden voyage.
Could you?
Well, I was just setting the date for myself. I want to know how close to Titanic this was.
The Queen Mary began its life as a cruise ship. I will set the scene for you. Don't worry, my script is organized and ready to go.
Well, okay then.
The Queen Mary began its life as a cruise ship on the Cunard White Star Line. The vessel was christened on September 26, 1934, by Queen Mary herself, and went on to log more than 3 decades of ferrying both luxury and military passengers. The Queen Mary's maiden voyage was in May of 1936, disembarking from Southampton, England, and docking in New York City, and it only took 5 days for that trip, which was unheard of at the time.
Holy cow.
2 years later, the RMS Queen Mary would then beat the record for the fastest Atlantic crossing, and it would hold that record until 1952. However, in 1940, the RMS Queen Mary was repurposed as a troop ship to aid in World War II. She was even nicknamed the Gray Ghost because she was painted camo gray.
All right.
Obviously, yeah. The accommodations, originally set at 2,140, would be doubled to 5,500 in order to carry more men, but then that number would also be doubled to about 10,000 eventually.
Yikes.
Yep. The ship did trips all over the world, from England to Australia. This is what led to its first tragedy. But before I go into the tragedy, I do want to do a shout out to Winston Churchill, because he actually spoke about the Queen Mary. He said the Queen Mary actually shaved a year off the war because it was so fast across the Atlantic that he would hop on it and come over to America to meet with the Allied troops and then go back over again.
Yeah, in less than 2 weeks, you could do that.
Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
Yep, so he said...
Considering, back in the age of, sailboats and everything, it would be months of traveling.
And for a while, they got the idea for this ship because of mail ships that ran before this, of course. Mm-hmm. And so he said that the Queen Mary actually shaved a year off the war because he was able to meet so easily and quickly.
Yeah.
Because this is before, planes and jet travel across the pond, as they say. But this is a spooky podcast, so we got to discuss the first tragedy. On October 2nd, 1942, during World War II, the Queen Mary collided with the British light cruiser, the HMS Curaçao. Since the Queen Mary was so much larger, it simply cut the other ship in 2.
Sorry.
And this resulted in...
It's like the Lake Erie thing all over again.
There is actually a whole story.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Because at first I was like, it's a whole ocean. How? How? But there's a reason. So when it sliced the ship in 2, it resulted in the deaths of more than 300 crew members on the Curaçao. Why did it collide? Well, the Curaçao was escorting the Queen Mary to Glasgow.
Oh, gee.
And it was zigzagging in front of the Queen Mary to confuse any potential U-boats in the water. Oh. Yeah. So it was zigzagging on purpose to kind of throw off the U-boats.
Zigged a little too sharp.
Well, the Queen Mary can travel at 28.5 knots or faster. So she was traveling at 28.5 knots and accidentally caught up to the Curaçao, and considering the Queen Mary was 20 times bigger, it sliced right through the much smaller boat, splitting it right in half. Can you imagine just zipping it through I don't know, you take a knife and you slice through a grilled cheese? That's what happened. Just done. So the tragedy then, not only did it chop it in half, was what happened in the ocean because of this. Some crew members were killed directly on impact. Who would have thought?
Mm-hmm.
While others were tossed into the freezing ocean waters. The people in the ocean waters watched the men trapped in the sliced boat sink to its demise.
Yeah.
So they watched that. Those men who were stuck on the boat would be fortunate, though, for their quick death, as it is said that the men who were in the frozen waters were dragged by the current into the propellers of the Queen Mary, which chopped them up.
I was just going to say, they would have gotten sucked under the ship, and yeah.
Yep. Now, due to wartime protocols, the captain of the Queen Mary was not allowed to stop and pick up any men still in the water, because there were still men in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was not allowed to stop because of wartime protocols. Instead, he had to radio the issue. So the British rescuers got there 2 hours later.
Yikes.
And they found pretty much no one. Almost everyone had died of hypothermia, just like Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the crewmen on the Curacao, only 99 survived.
Wow.
Yes. Now, after the war, in 1947, the Queen Mary returned to its original stance as a luxury liner, and it continued for more than 20 years. But in 1967, she was retired mostly due to the lack of interest in boats with the advent of jet travel. You could now hop on a plane and go across the pond in a matter of hours, not 5 days.
Yeah.
She became permanently moored in the city of Long Beach, California. There, she was converted into a floating hotel. They literally chugged everything out that they could to make more hotel rooms. And I actually learned from a different podcast that to make sure that the boat stayed where it was anchored, they emptied out the fuel and they put mud in where the fuel goes to make sure it stays stable and it has less of that rocking. It's pretty cool. So she ain't going to sail ever again.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But so anyway, 5 years later, it reopened, allowing guests to sleep among the original wood paneling and portholes and imagine what it would have been like to cross the Atlantic in style. Now, during the time that it's been a floating hotel, you want to call it that, the city of Long Beach owned it. Then it was owned by a rich investor because he and his wife had wonderful memories of it. Mm-hmm. Upon his death, he was the guy who created, he built the Disney Hotel. Disney wanted this hotel for years, of course, because Disney.
Yeah.
So upon his death, they were able to buy not only the hotel, but also the Queen Mary. So for a couple of years, Disney actually owned the Queen Mary, which is confusing to think about. But they wanted to start a Disney at Sea and franchise, if we will, in California. Yeah. But then they decided to go the route of the Disneyland California track.
Yeah. And they have their own cruise ships now.
Well, yeah.
So eventually they got there.
Yeah. So because they decided to go the route of the Disneyland over in California and not the Queen Mary, they sold the Queen Mary off. Mm-hmm. So Queen Mary is now once again, it was owned by Long Beach once again. They were able to get it marked as whatever historical landmark. And it now is reopened again as a floating hotel.
All right.
But it's gone through many hands, like so many hands. But that's not the important part. I want to focus the next 40 minutes on the ghost stories because there are so many.
Excellent.
For the first time in my life, I feel like I chopped down the history to get to the ghost stories because there's just so much.
Yeah.
All
Usually
right.
That's like my episodes are the ghost stuff, you know.
I even have an audio to play tonight. Yeah. So there's stuff. Yeah. So, for the ghost stories, stories of strange sights and sounds soon grew to the point that the ship became known as one of the most haunted hotels in America. During its heyday, at least a dozen crew members and more than 36 passengers died on board. These have led to the theories of hauntings. Officially, there were 49 recorded deaths on the ship. Because of this, the hotel then offers day and nighttime ghost tours, along with being a hotel.
Okay.
There are 375 rooms on the ship, 50 of which they believe are haunted. B340 is supposed to be the most haunted room, and for a while, you could not stay in it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so haunted, they started pulling stuff out of there and we're going to turn it into something else. Well, now it's an attraction. But they actually have pictures of it. For a while, you could not stay there, and they were retrofitting it.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Chris Wilmoth, the director of marketing at the Queen Mary, stated, quote, "Not only does the Queen Mary offer a transatlantic history, but it is known as one of the most haunted destinations in America. The unique history of the ship allows us to offer one-of-a-kind and authentic experiences that delve into the paranormal, from evening tours and ghost investigations to overnight stays in our most haunted stateroom, B340. Now today, As many as 150 different spirits may still call the Queen Mary home. Yeah.
Let's go.
So I'm going to start to California.
Jackie, we're coming.
Yeah, Jackie. So I want to start with room B340 because
Obviously,
I want to hit the biggest one first. You might as well
Okay.
hit the ground running. So the most reportedly haunted place on the ship, as I mentioned, is room B340. This stateroom was a problem long before the Queen Mary opened as a hotel. In 1948, a British third-class passenger, Walter J. Adamson, passed away in the room under circumstances that have been lost to time.
Okay.
So, by all reports, though, it was natural causes.
Okay.
Later, in 1966, a woman staying in the room reported that she was woken up when the bed covers were pulled off of her and she saw a man standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed and rang for the steward, but the man apparently vanished into thin air. In the years since, guests have reported hearing someone knocking on the door in the middle of the night and seeing bathroom lights mysteriously turn on. Even the hotel's maids have made reports of bathroom water running when no one had stayed in the room for days, and on one occasion, of bed covers being pulled off right after the bed had been made. The room, as I mentioned,
That'd be
was
so annoying.
just did all that hard work. The room was closed to guests for many years, but of course it has since reopened for anyone looking for an evening of creepy fun. Now, I actually was listening to a podcast about the Queen Mary earlier, and I turned it off because my researcher self was like, that didn't happen, and I just turned the podcast off. I'm not going to mention the name of the person or the podcast, but there is a story that a man was in there with daughters and he killed them. That is not true.
Yeah.
100% not true.
Yeah, that's that definitely sounds like Hollywood overblown.
And there is a movie based off the Queen Mary. But yeah, there is absolutely nothing to support that ever happened. Everyone who died on this boat died of natural causes. Yeah. So yeah, that's just silly. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh, you didn't do enough research. Click.
I'm done with you now.
Yeah,
I don't trust you.
So, but what's interesting is, because it reopened right after COVID, and during COVID, they were kind of doing like soft openings because they would let people come in because you were in a small group, it was obviously COVID safe, but nothing was open. There was no restaurant available because COVID, rules. So the Ellen DeGeneres show, actually, she sent Andy there. So while we may not have love for certain people on the show, all right, and Dan, our theater guy, worked on that show for a while, Andy, who was the executive producer of the Ellen DeGeneres show, is hilarious. Wonderful guy. So during COVID, he was able to do a ghost hunt on the Queen Mary because it was shut down, as I mentioned. So we got to do it with a ghost hunter named Linda, who is well known, and that's what she does for a living.
I know. I've seen Linda in some things. I like it's great. Like you say Linda, it's like, oh yeah, Linda. I know Linda.
Never last name. Yeah. And then Mark, he's a caretaker of the ship. He also has a dog, and it wears like a vest, and it says "Paranormal Support Pup," which is the cutest thing.
That's so mean though to take a dog in a place like that. I think because they're so much more sensitive to those things.
But this guy, Mark, the caretaker, says he sleeps on the ship 5 days a week.
So he's there all the time. Okay.
People have stories and he's seen and witnessed things, but he doesn't feel threatened.
Yeah.
But anyway, what happened to Andy in room B340 was pretty amazing, and they got it live on TV. And then Luna, the director of the show, who was there like setting up the cameras beforehand, she also had an experience along with someone else in the room. So I want to play that for you and for the listeners, just because it's an interesting situation.
Okay, B340.
What is B340?
That's where I'm going to set everything.
What is B340?
Poor Andy.
What is B340? Someone going to explain that to me?
Yeah, this is a really cute little room, I would say. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't feel anything bad yet.
No.
This is like the most haunted hotel room in the whole country.
Are you laying on the bed right now?
And so she has one of those light up things.
Is it okay if Andy lays next to you? How many spirits are in this room with me right now?
I literally just had a tongue go into my ear.
And so if you watch it on the screen,
I just felt a wet tongue aggressively go into my ear. I am not making that up. Is that possible?
Yes.
Why would he put a tongue in my ear? It was aggressive. It wasn't romantic.
Did you just put your tongue in Andy's ear?
Head.
What?
Finger.
Finger.
Grace.
Finger. It was your finger you put in, but it was wet. Grace, was that your wet finger?
Both of the deaths in this room were drownings in the swimming pool, which is maybe where you're getting the wet from.
Okay, well, I think we're good. This is a completely empty boat except for us and a couple camera people. That thing is going crazy. It hasn't stopped since we've been here. Somebody put their tongue in my ear, and I'm out. Let's get out of here. Like, for real.
Andy, don't.
And so what happened then, there's more, so I'm going to skip forward in a second. But so the two people who died in the room had been brought back because they had drowned in the pool, but, hadn't totally died yet.
Yeah.
And so the deaths then were drownings. Again, natural causes, unfortunately, from the pool. That's in the ship, right? But he's there laying on the bed beside the little light up thing because it lights up when it wants to say yes or no. It turns red or green. And PJ watched it, like, all of a sudden he just, like, freaks out because something goes in his ear. And Andy's, like, pretty, like, he obviously knows how to ham things up, but he's like, that was not okay. We're getting off of here. We're done. And so he didn't want to talk about it, but he's brought back to the show. And so Ellen sits down beside him and he starts talking.
You didn't see anything, but you felt things.
Yeah. The room where I got the...
Aggressive tongue. Not the romantic, but the aggressive tongue.
The aggressive tongue. Luna, who's our director, what happened when you went in the room before me?
You went to scout the location.
Yes.
She's our director.
Yes.
And so tell everybody what happened to you in that room.
About 2 hours before Andy showed up, it was me and our producer Robbie and a sound mixer, and we were in the room, and we just finished figuring out where cameras are going to be, and all of a sudden I felt something really close to me, like not just next to my ear, like in my ear. And it was a woman's voice. It was about 5 words. I didn't understand the language, but it was for sure a woman's voice. 6 seconds later, my producer Robbie heard a woman scream. And we both sat there looking at each other going like, what is happening right now?
So, and everybody was so worried that the ghost would follow you home because they can attach themselves. So you saged everybody. Everyone got saged to make sure ghosts are not leaving with you.
We saged before we went in. We did a group kind of, not a prayer, but just like a meeting to get ourselves all strong. And then afterwards, we made sure we were not getting into cars unless we were saged because we didn't want them to get in the cars and go home with us.
Did you believe in ghosts before that?
I think that there's something, and now I think that something is more tangible.
Yeah. And you, like you said,
I'm 1,000,000% there it is. I don't know what ghost, I don't know spirit. I just know we're not alone.
Yeah, all right. Next time you'll do something, I'll go with you.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, all right.
And so there you go. So it's funny. It's just like, what's B40? What's B340? What's B340?
Yeah.
Oh, poor Andy.
That's why when I tell my ghost stories of what happened to us in school, I'm the same way with Andy, like, where I'm like, you can, there's certainly a paranormal definition for everything that happened to us. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a scientific one too, but there isn't one yet. As soon as science can explain it, I will accept that definition, that reasoning. Mm-hmm. But until then, like, whatever it is, I know it happened. And I believe in it, like, that's kind of what Andy was getting at there. Like, I don't know what it is, but I believe in it. It's there.
1,000,000%. When you have an aggressive tongue stuck in your ear.
It's like a wet willy.
Well, and so you'd have to watch the entire episode to understand, like, what machinery, like, what mechanisms he was using. It was given to him by Linda the Ghost Hunter. And so it's a machine that has pre-chosen words for them that they can choose.
Yeah.
And so instead of it being unclear EVPs, they can actually choose words like names or whatever.
Yeah, I believe that one's a spirit box that does that.
So he
which is that robotic voice you heard,
chose the word finger.
Yeah, so I don't know if I trust those devices because I feel like they could just arbitrarily just spout words out. Like our Alexa does that all the time. Like,
okay,
I don't know if I trust that
poor
technology.
Andy.
But yeah, that would still be pretty unnerving.
Yeah. Is your name Grace? Get your tongue out of my ear.
Like the Estes method. If I was going to choose like some communication form, the Estes method I feel is the most reliable.
You might want to explain that for your listeners.
So the Estes method...
Carrie's not here to explain it.
Yeah. The Estes method, I don't know why you have to be blindfolded for it, but you wear blindfold and noise-canceling headphones, and they're connected to a radio scanner that just goes and it like just skips through radio frequencies, and it skips so fast that you can't get a whole word. Mm-hmm. So if a full word comes to you, it's coming from like 5 different radio frequencies, which means that it's not a radio frequency. Yeah. You're getting something else. And so, and with the noise canceling headphones, what happens is other people around you are asking questions to an empty room or supposedly empty room. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea what they're saying because you're in noise canceling headphones. But a word, you might hear the response, and you have to say it out loud to everyone else because they can't hear it. So I think that is probably the most, interesting and reliable.
I would say reliable, yeah. Well, in any case, Carrie wants to try that out. We'll talk about that in a different episode.
That would be terrifying, though. Could you imagine just like sitting there and all you hear is and then all of a sudden like finger, like, just some voice just comes out of the static in your ears and you're blindfolded and like, you're in a haunted house.
See, my luck, I get the word like egg, frying pan, hungry.
Second breakfast. Hobbits' Shire. Baggins.
Anyway. All right, so the next place then. So room B340, definitely, as Mark says, it's the most haunted hotel room in America. On the side note. The Mauritania room is also supposed to be haunted. So in 1989, 2 women were sent to clean this lounge for a VIP reception. When they entered the room, they found a guest sitting silently on a chair in the middle of the dance floor. When a 3rd woman came in to help with the cleaning, she remarked that the guest was staring, and she asked him to move. As the employee started to call security, the guest faded into thin air right in front of them. A feat all 3 women reported seeing at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, that to me adds validity, because they all saw it.
That's so creepy.
And why one single chair in the middle of the dance floor? Like, what is going on there? I don't understand.
Like, how obnoxious can a ghost be?
I would imagine there was, like, a wedding, and they were going to lift him up, very Jewish wedding. And no. The next one is the Mayfair room. This room was once the ship's beauty salon, but now it's used as office space for hotel employees. In 2001, a member of the accounting staff came in to work early, about 5:30 a.m.
And she swears she heard gossip.
Oh, my goodness. And she simply felt like something was off. She went about her office tasks before sitting down at her desk and feeling unusually cold. Later, she felt someone brush up against the back of her chair, but no one was there. Just minutes after that, the woman saw a transparent figure in white walk across the room and pass through the door. Needless to say, the employee grabbed her keys and fled the room until her coworkers arrived.
Yeah?
See, for me, I'd be like, see, if it's a ghost and it was the hair salon, okay, while you're here, can you give me a balayage? Thank you, looking good.
Yeah, like you sit down, start typing, and then you just hear like, so a little off the top today? No?
And she feels it behind her too, so like she's sitting in a chair, like almost like she's gonna get her hair cut or something. So imagine being like on a cruise ship that does hair. Like
with the swaying of the waters and everything.
Poor. Like the fact that these people have like this floating hotel, like grandiose place,
but like
that has a beauty salon.
I don't know if I'd trust it because like cruise ships, they still sway with the water.
Yeah, but you also are like you're gonna be screwed to the floor. The chair is. Yeah. So I think they would just kind of wait for it to get a little better. They'd wait back and forth and then snip, snip. Well, anyway.
I've never been on a cruise ship. I wouldn't know.
Preach, baby, preach.
Yeah.
I've been on one, but it wasn't a cruise ship.
I was on a battleship for a night.
You were on the Murder Mystery Cruise.
That's not like a cruise ship, though. Like, compared to the Queen Mary or the Carnival cruise ships that we have now.
Yeah, I know. The next haunted place, though, is the first class swimming pool. As mentioned by Mark in the video, people have drowned on the ship, which I feel is kind of sad. Like, you're on an ocean in a boat, but you still drown. The irony does not... Anyway, so this now abandoned onboard pool was once the epitome of luxury with an illuminated fountain, a mother-of-pearl ceiling, and elaborate mosaic tiles. So she looking good. But the pool is no longer in use because of California code issues. But that doesn't stop it from being one of the hotbeds of paranormal activity on the ship. People have reported seeing a number of apparitions here, including a young woman in a tennis skirt walking downstairs and disappearing behind a pillar, a woman in an old wedding gown next to the pool with a little boy in a suit, and a cloud of steam appearing out of nowhere, along with a little girl in a blue and white dress who disappears in an instant. The ghost is supposed to be a little girl who drowned in the second-class pool and haunts the first-class swimming pool. Her name is Jackie. She can be seen running around playing hide-and-seek and laughing, and her little bare wet footprints just kind of appear.
Oh, don't like that.
Nope. But what's also cool is some people have said that they have seen people like diving into the water, but there's no water. So they'll see like people diving off and then like, they just disappear. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. How messed up would that be, Lo? Like, you see someone just jump into an empty pool and you're like freaking out for a half second, until they just disappear.
Well, and there was a picture on Reddit of someone who took a picture in the pool room, and there's a person like in a wedding gown in the one corner. But I don't know if I believe it, because knowing that the Queen Mary is owned by people and like the pictures can be staged.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't believe it, but it's kind of cool.
It's still a cool image, whether it's real or not.
Exactly. All right, next is boiler room number 4. Several people have reported seeing a little girl in this area, sometimes sucking her thumb and sometimes with a doll in her hand. That creeps me out.
Uh-huh.
Whether or not the room is haunted by the little girl, I just would say it's this kind of like residual haunt that shows up.
Yeah, sounds like.
Because from what it sounds like, she doesn't interact. She's just there.
Yeah.
You see her.
Same with the person diving.
Yeah, exactly. The next one, though, is really sad. It's hatch door, and I'm not kidding, number 13.
Oh.
Yeah. But this hatch door is known as Shaft Alley, and it was the site of a gruesome accident that saw a crewman crushed to death. One night in 1966, the watertight doors in the engine and boiler rooms were ordered to be closed. About 5 minutes later, an 18-year-old crew member from Yorkshire was found crushed in the door of hatch number 13, trapped with his arms pinned to his side. Although the man was freed and carried to the hospital ward, it was too late. He showed signs of crushing injury on his arms, chest, and pelvis, and was bleeding from his nose. He was injected with morphine, but he still died shortly after.
Yeah.
Not a good way to go.
No.
His ghost is regularly seen around the area now, usually in his white overalls, with people reporting the sound of someone running behind them and whistling. Others have possibly made
running and whistling, like at the same time? Or is it two different events?
Others have possibly made contact with the doomed crewmen, noticing spots of grease that look like fingerprints on their faces. Some have seen a figure of a bearded man in blue coveralls who looks just like the man who died out of the corner of their eye. Several others have said that they have seen an engineer wandering the hallways asking if guests have seen his wrench, but when they went back to find him, he has disappeared. And of course, as I mentioned, it's room number 13, hatch number 13, so that's just kind of creepy. So those are the big major areas.
Okay.
But there are other notable, as mentioned, there's possibly 150 ghosts.
Oh
so
my.
I now have the most notable ghosts that you may see in rooms or just kind of like anywhere on the ship.
Okay.
The first one is the spirit of Senior Second Officer W.E. Stark. And as soon as I typed this, I knew you would have a comment. He died one night in 1949 after accidentally drinking acid instead of gin.
Oh my. This liquor is strong. That burn.
It has those 3 X's on there. I didn't realize it meant acid. But he has been spotted wandering the ship's corridors. The whole story that we understand 60 plus years later is that he was told to have a gin for doing a good day's work. And so he went into the room to get the gin.
Must have done a bad day's work.
But he wasn't aware that the bottle that he grabbed had been repurposed to hold either, because no one's sure, acid or a laundry detergent. In any case, it killed him.
Oh my.
Whoopsie doodles.
Why would you repurpose?
Thank you. It's just like chemistry class. You don't repurpose the bottle. All right, number 2, another one. In the region of the bow where the Queen Mary collided with the Curacao, you can hear this creaking and grinding sound. And you can also hear people screaming, but those noises are constantly reported. So you can hear the death of 300 men as they get sliced in half. The boat does. Number 3, this one is actually pretty gross. There's a story of a cook who was killed during World War II by Australian soldiers. They shoved him into one of his ovens to burn to death.
Seriously? Like, that's a real thing?
Yes, these were soldiers the Queen Mary had picked up, and apparently they did not like the food, so they rioted. The cook's screams can still be heard in the galley, and if you watch the BuzzFeed video where they're talking about the Queen Mary and everything, they're sitting in one of the main, big ballrooms, but the galley is off behind them. As they're talking about this story, everyone specifically hears this crashing glass sound, and they go, did that just something happen? Are you kidding me? And they're like looking back, and the one guy's just like, guys, that's where the galley is. I'm like, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it, but like they were freaking out. And the one guy who didn't want to be there, he's just like, okay, we can go now. Like, we're done.
I love when things like that happens. Like, Eli Roth's A Ghost Ruined My Life. Like, some of those episodes are really bad. But the first episode, you know, they have those little confessional interviews where it's just a woman and, you know, in front of her doorway or kitchen talking to a camera. And as she's doing it, like, her phone goes off and she's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought I turned it off. And you watch her like turn the volume down and she puts it away. And then 2 seconds later it goes off again. She's like, I just turned it off. Like, what happened? And so I love when that happens.
Well, another episode, the light started flickering, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, sorry, that just happens.
Yeah, that was the same episode, I think. The same woman.
Yeah.
Like, that woman just, the whole time, every time she was doing, like, a confessional, you know, something happened.
It wanted you to know it was there.
But, yeah, that just... And that's one of those shows that has, like, dramatic reenactments and things like that with actors. So it's really cool to see in between those moments that things were just still happening in the house. Because usually when that happens, like, nothing happens. Yeah. They're just talking in front of a camera. And
the guys on BuzzFeed, they're like, okay, we have to go now. Goodbye, cook in the galley, bye. So, you know, we can chalk up to maybe it was, like, planned. But, like, you could tell by their faces, like, everyone's, like, surprised. And they're all just like, did you... And they're talking to the person behind the camera, like the director, like, did you hear that? Yeah, that definitely sounded like breaking glass. What the heck? What? Like, they're all confused. So, in any case.
That's cool.
Yeah. Another ghost is a woman dressed in all white, and she's dancing by herself in one of the luxury suites. So, let's not stay there. Added to this, another section of ghosts would be several adults and children. They're all wearing 1930s era garb, and they've been spotted just wandering the pool decks. So, again, that kind of residual energy there. Overall, though, it is suggested that people watch out for drastic temperature changes, slamming doors, knocking, screams, light flickering, and children crying. There may be something to this baby crying thing, though. I'll tell you what, because there's a story. One Redditor named Rita the Cat, great Reddit name, posted, and I quote, "When I was a kid, my mom would take my brother and me on the Queen Mary. One time we went into a roped-off area and explored. I thought I heard a scream, and my mom and brother both thought they heard a baby crying. Later, we bought a book from the gift shop about the Queen Mary, and one of the stories was about hearing the scream of a mom who found her baby dead in the hallway we were in. There were reports mentioned in the book that some people could hear the baby crying too. Realistically, I think we were letting our imaginations get the best of us because we were in an area that we weren't supposed to be in. But that being said, the book kind of freaked Rita the Cat out because it fit what they had heard. But anyway, there's also something, so apart from ghosts, there's something on the ship that drains people, not emotionally, but also physically as well. So the last of my stories all come from Reddit, and they are about like just being sucked of this energy, and then other ghost stories too.
Yeah.
But one Redditor stated, and I'm not going to use the name because there's a swear word in it, so it's just one Redditor stated, "I stayed overnight at the Queen Mary once. It was a weird experience. Some of our stuff went missing. When we were getting ready to go on the tour, we couldn't find the things we'd packed. We left for the haunted tour, and it looked like someone had been in our room. When we woke the next morning, we were all reported a strange heaviness to our sleep, as if a force was holding us in sleep. Not like sleep paralysis where you feel awake but you can't move, more like noises in the room, but what they would normally wake you, but you felt like you were being held asleep. But that's not the weirdest part. We are absolutely certain we locked the deadbolt before going to bed, and the deadbolt was unlocked from the inside when we woke." So it's like keeping them there almost.
Yeah.
But then another Redditor, Christina W25, said, "I had a few experiences years ago when I toured the ship. We were viewing the swimming pool, which is very empty now, and it used to be a sleeping area of sorts for troops. I was startled to see some shadows diving into where the water would be from a height I could guess was a diving board. We also went to a darkened room the tour guide said used to be a dressing room for entertainment shows that the ship would put on back in the day. I immediately felt like I was going to faint and that my, I guess, battery drained. The guide said that happens often there. We also went to a shower area the guide said had been reported to be a portal, but I didn't feel anything." And so in response to that, Mega_Asteroid said, "I had a very odd experience on the Queen Mary. I did an impromptu tour of the boat. There was a flea market in the park next to her, and with admission, you could walk around the boat. My friend walked around looking at the pictures, walking through some hallways on either side of the deck, and then the engine rooms. Going up one side of the engine room, on a thin metal ladder. I got very discombobulated, like vertigo. I don't know what. I'd felt sort of dizzy since getting on the ship, but this was suddenly very intense, and I actually clawed at the railing to hold on to as I lost my balance and keeled toward the side. While the Queen Mary is floating technically, she doesn't move that much or pitch or roll at all. It was the strangest thing, and I had never felt anything like that since. Not long after touring the boat, my friend and I parted ways, and I went home and collapsed into an all-encompassing nap for about 2 hours. I was suddenly just exhausted, like all my energy had been zapped. I texted my friend when I woke up and found out she'd had the same exhaustion/nap experience. And then in response to that, someone named Empathetic Witch said, "Oh wow, reading your account of your experience reminded me of my own. At the time I didn't think much of it, honestly. A few years ago I took my 10-year-old daughter to the Winter Festival at the Queen Mary. We went a little early to walk around the boat and do a self-guided tour of sorts before the festival opened that evening. My daughter and I were walking near the bow on the outside metal deck. I'd been taking pictures when all of a sudden I felt like I was going to fall over. I put my phone away and sat on a step hoping it would pass. I brushed it off as, I don't know. So yeah, it's interesting that people keep saying they felt this this draining experience, almost like, you know, the entities are trying to zap you of your energy so they can do something, they can manifest in some way. So that really freaks me out. But then I have one last story and then I'm done. And this one is crazy because as I was looking for ghost stories, a lot of people have witnessed this person, this entity. Okay. Now I'm taking this story from the subreddit Paranormal. And so one Redditor said, in the late 80s, my then boyfriend, now husband, and I attended a function at night on the Queen Mary. We were wandering around the deck and I was able to open a door that looked like it was a museum display. It was a T-shaped room and I walked through and made a left where there were displays at the end of the hall. But there stood a couple. The man looked like he was wearing a formal uniform, and the woman looked like she was wearing a green dress that looked like it was from the 30s or 40s. I'm not a good judge of fashion. The woman looked annoyed at me like I interrupted a conversation, and I remember saying, "Oh, excuse me," and immediately turned around going back the way I came. My husband was walking slower and hadn't made the turn into the hall yet at this point, and I told him something like, "Oh, there's a couple in there," at which point he rounded the corner and said, "Where? There's no one there." I walked back and I said, "What?" And sure enough, the hall was empty, and there wasn't anywhere anyone could have come or gone except the way we came in. I just brushed it off at the time. Then in the early 2000s, a friend of mine was making a comment about when she was a little girl in the 70s. She was on the Queen Mary with her family and was in a room where she saw a woman in a fancy old-style green dress, and that woman glared at her like she was rude to stare at her. I shared my story with her, and we both concluded that it very well may have been the same woman because the same scowl, the same dress, and the same disappearing after noticing her fit our stories. There is no man with my friend's story, but too much of it was there for it to be a coincidence. And if you look into the story, this one with the scowl pops up over and over because I think there's something to be said about like someone who scowls at you. Like you don't forget someone who like has an anger or the hatred towards you.
He's like, "Geez, fine."
It's like, my bad. Sorry, this is an open ship. Okay, my bad. So it's just interesting to see that story kind of over and over and over again. But those are the major ghosts that haunt the Queen Mary.
All right, that's really neat. That's really cool. If we ever go to California, I want to take a visit.
Jackie. We want to stay at your house, Jackie. I find a lot of it to be fascinating. I really do. And I want to believe it. But there's times like when you read some of the stories, people say, I've been on there and there's nothing that's happened. It just feels like any old boat to me.
Some people just naturally repel these things too.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many people. I'm convinced my parents are those people. Like, they just repel any activity and they will never experience anything, no matter how active the place is, because of something about them. I look
at this house. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they didn't notice anything all those years.
Yeah.
Because there had to be something going on, right? Because it's the house, not us.
Yeah.
That's what the priest said.
Yeah.
I think there was just so many people in the house at that point that they just assumed that something went missing. It's because the kids
because of someone else. Yeah.
I think Laura invites it in. I think not like in that like that. I think she's
It's
receptive.
all Laura's fault.
It's all Laura's. No. I think she's just like in tune. I think a little more closely with that part of the world. Like you said, like until there's science to back up like what's happening.
Yeah, there's no way we can say one way or the other.
I would just say that Laura's more sensitive. But your sister Jen said she's really had no major experiences.
No.
So maybe she's like your mom. She's kind of repels things in a way. Well, in any case, the Queen Mary, I mean, it still exists. People still go there to do like EVP recordings, ghost hunts. You know, they stay there for fun because it's a hotel. It did shut down from COVID for a little while, but it opened up again, like I said. So you can go there again and hang out. And there is a Queen Mary 2, very different boat.
Yeah.
Didn't run over a cruiser and slice it in two. Oh, this is one of the stories, though. I couldn't imagine, like, knowing that there are people being sucked into the propellers and being just twisted and mangled.
Yeah.
Okay. No wonder it's haunted. Ugh. All right, anyway. You can actually go to the propeller room, too. They actually have lights on it, so you can see the propellers.
That's so great.
Yeah. There's no blood on those propellers.
I would hope so.
But in true, like, creepy fashion, they have green lights on the propellers.
Yeah.
So it looks like the propellers you'd see, like, in the Titanic, too. So it's like, oh, I've seen those on movies before. Yeah. Anyway. Anything you want to say?
No, I believe everything. It doesn't sound like many of them are intelligent haunts.
A lot of residual.
A lot of residual energy. Which is interesting because it's like from people who, you know, like are just swimming and things like people who wouldn't probably traditionally leave residual energy.
Yeah.
So like the cook, that makes sense because the cook had a horrific fate there.
Be a little angry.
Yeah, and the people who drowned, like that makes sense too.
Actually, BuzzFeed makes a funny joke about the cook. This is why Yelp was created. You could have given 1-star review and say you throw them in an oven. That is why Yelp is created. It's because of these situations. But anyway.
But then there's like the little girl, you know, like what, she was just on there for a little trip probably. I don't think she lived there.
Yeah.
So why is there residual energy of her?
It has to be just like an imprint or something. Maybe it was a happy time for her.
I guess.
And people say, well, why is it in the boiler room? Why is it over here? Whatever. But you have to understand, like, the ship went through so many iterations. Yeah. And so many parts of it were gutted to turn it into a floating hotel that what is the boiler room now may have been, you know, some kind of suite before. Or maybe she went on a little trip down there because you could see the boiler room. You know, we could ask and go down for a little trip down there. So, I don't know. Like, I just think that maybe she enjoyed going down there.
But from what we understand about residual energy, you have to spend a lot of time with a place or an object to imprint on it.
Yeah.
Which, that doesn't fit the bill.
Unless there's a high amount of emotion.
Right, which is, you know, which leads to, you know, the people who met horrific fates and things like that, why they would be imprinted in there. Because that's a lot of energy, a lot of emotion being released at one time. But yeah, I'm just curious.
Up to people like being primed, like, oh, down here, some people see a little girl holding a teddy bear. Oh, now I see it. You know, you're primed for it.
Yeah.
I think so many times it's just coincidence and it's not actually there, but your brain starts putting it together. I do, like, you know, as we do this more and more, when I read stories, I think, oh, PJ's not going to like that because it's a misty kind of looking ghost.
Yeah. When you said the transparent ghost, I'm like, uh-huh.
Yeah. However, to see people actually like diving off of a fake, not even their diving board, going into non-function, like there's no water, like that is just kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, like you see like a person, you know, like just jumping off, you know, like they're floating in midair and then they just kind of leap into an empty pool. Like that'd freak me out.
Now, some people were saying that things happen around the boat too. But I couldn't get any stories about that.
Yeah. I hate that when you hear things and it's like, where's the source for it? Like, and you find like the hearsay all over the place. Like, where is the source? Like, Joseph Bonaparte seeing Jersey Devil. Everyone says, like, all of his friends say, yeah, he told us this. But, like, nowhere did any of that, like, can I find the actual source of where they, wrote this down?
Did he, though? So, I mean, whatever I couldn't find fact for, I didn't include. But there was a lot of little things like that kind of drew me nuts. I'm like, well, I could see a place that is like haunted and has a lot of history. I could see it kind of like being a beacon for ghosts, maybe, you know, and like kind of drawing that energy. But you're sitting in a port. Like, there's water. What, is the water haunted around it? Like, I don't, but they do flea markets around, weird things happen. Again, I think, are you priming yourself like, oh my gosh, that glass moved? honey, it was probably the wind, you know? So I didn't include any of those stories just because you could chalk up to being
there's
whatever.
so many things that could factor into it.
Now the question is, should we talk about Pennhurst?
I think so. I'm so excited for this.
All right, so we have a really cool bit of news. Carrie, our paranormal expert, and I, last night, decided to hop online, look for some fun things to do. It started off as a girls' weekend for her, me, and Sophie, and it quickly turned into, what can we do together? And I found tickets on sale, and it was a one-day only thing to get them on sale. They were full price again. All right, so sorry, listeners.
Which really, it's only a $30 difference. It's not that.
Well, we got tickets. We are going to be locked in the Quaker building. So I know my cousin Sky is listening, and she's like, nope.
Those of you who listen to, I think it was episode 3 of our Pennhurst series, I dive deep because I read 2 books from a tour guide who worked in the Quaker building. Like that's how active it is that she wrote 2 books about her experiences there.
I gotta say, I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm freaked out, but I'm so excited.
We're gonna sage before and we're gonna sage after.
Yep.
Just like the people on Ellen DeGeneres did. As long as you're careful. We're gonna go there. We'll do a live.
We're going to do a live stream.
If we're allowed to. Yep, we're going to do a live stream. Regardless, we're going to do recordings there. Paranormal expert Carrie is getting all of her bag of tricks ready to go.
I'm taking the 360 camera. We're taking other cameras. We're taking all kinds of stuff with us. We're taking our podcast stuff. We're going to record an episode there on site.
Maybe we'll meet Phantom Detectives there. We'll see. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
That'd be so cool. We're going to do a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's in July 19th.
19th. There's still tickets if anyone wants to order one.
There are, yes.
Come with us.
Come save us. But we have the ability to do all 4 levels and some other sections too.
Yeah, because the tours were only floors 1 and 2.
Because they were so unsafe and they were so active.
Yeah.
Wasn't it floor 4? Was that the lobotomy floor? Was it floor 4?
I think so. I know that the second floor where the tour guide was positioned, she constantly heard footsteps above her in floor 3. Like floor 3 has a lot of stuff going on from the sounds of it. So
yeah, one of those I think is the lobotomy floor. And it's just really I had to go back and listen. It's been a while. But yeah, so excited, a little nervous, but excited.
Yeah.
So we're going to hype it up now because it's May. We got 2 months. But
well, yeah, and we're just super excited.
We're super excited. And we got it on sale. Which I'm just like, yay, on sale. But anyway, that is all I have for this evening. I want to say thank you for listening to the Well House Exorcism. Thank you to all of our listeners who are now coming out of the woodwork to talk to us. Please tell your friends, as PJ has mentioned many times. It's crazy how quickly the podcast is growing thanks to you guys and sharing with your friends. Our friend Matt has our bumper stickers and our magnets
on his car.
And people are asking him about it all the time. So it's just really exciting to see Games Overboard
Speaking
and Well
of,
House.
If we were to open an online shop, listeners, would you purchase things? Like that's a realistic possibility that we're starting to have to consider. So, but we need to know if there's a desire for it. So that's another reason for you to please reach out to us and say like, yeah, I would. And if so, what kind of things would you be interested in?
Because the other option is to kind of have our own supply of stuff and sell like at markets and whatnot and Paracons. So. Yeah. I'd rather have it available for you guys to buy online and ship to your own homes because not everyone lives in Pennsylvania. Like Jackie. So yeah, let us know if you're interested. I love the car magnets. We have the t-shirts. We've made mugs. We've made pins. We made lots of cool things. We made glasses for you and Dan for Games Overboard.
Yeah.
We've dabbled. We made a bag one time too. We've paid to have lots of cool things made to see what would kind of be loved.
Yeah, we can do pretty much anything through the website that we found.
Yep.
Since we have our logo, we own the rights to our logo. We can just put it on whatever we want.
I made it myself. I made all of our logos.
That's right.
I dabbled there too.
You made the logos, I made the music.
That's right.
Boom, boom.
With our powers combined. And I make the scripts that nobody else reads except for Tim.
Wait, there are scripts?
Shut up. Anyway, find us on Instagram at Well House Exorcism. You can find us on Twitter /X You also find us on Facebook. Again, it's under Games Overboard. So thank you, Phantom Detectives, for finding us there. As I like to mention over and over again, we are a subsidiary of Games Overboard. So you can hop on our website at gamesoverboard.com. You can see all of our episodes for everything we do, from Danger and Dice all the way through Games Overboard.
We have video interviews
with Kevin, Paul.
game designers, authors.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We've met some incredible people.
Yep. Jason's. We've also met River the dog.
River the dog.
Very important.
Can't forget River.
Yep. So please email us, though. Really appreciate it. And as you guys have noticed, we respond right away. Chris got a message back from me within like half an hour. Listen, Chris, it was Mother's Day. I was sleeping. But anyway, we definitely want to hear from you. And tell us what you want to hear about. Like, I just made some boats here. That was all for Steve. Okay, so let us know. But as always, think spooky thoughts. The loud wind never reached the ship, yet now the ship moved on. Beneath the lightning and the moon, the dead men gave a groan. They groaned, they stirred, they all uprose, nor spake nor moved their eyes. It had been strange, even in a dream, to have seen those dead men rise. The helmsman steered, the ship moved on, yet never a breeze up blew. The mariners all 'gan work the ropes, where they were wont to do. They raised their limbs like lifeless tools. We were a ghastly crew. The body of my brother's son stood by me, knee to knee. The body and I pulled at one rope, but he said naught to me. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge.